Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Bella Shaw. Well, it may not be long before you'll see local marijuana dispensaries around town as a result of the election. Ventura County Supervisor Linda Parks joins us, and I guess the new law went into effect right after the election.
Yes, right after the election, people are allowed to legally smoke marijuana in the state of California. You're allowed to grow up to 6 plants per house. It's a whole different scene now.
It opens up like a million questions, and I guess the first one would be, does this open the door to people kind of like Prohibition days saying, hey, yay, now I'm going to use it more? Do more people are going to start smoking?
That's a really good question. I think that it will increase the number of people who are getting high, and that's a big concern because that means you can have impaired drivers. I think that's one of the more scary parts. And then the whole apparatus that we need to be able to determine that you're driving under the influence. And that's probably one of the more scarier parts. But it also will have an effect on things like land use. You go into some of these, I've been in Colorado, I've been in Oregon, and you see a lot of the shopping centers all have marijuana dispensaries there, and it's you know, I think of it like a tattoo parlor or a massage parlor. I mean, it's not something you want to be known for in your community.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, a lot of these people who have been getting it illegally may say they still want it illegally because maybe it's stronger. There'll be regulations, right?
Yeah, the requirements of the law do say that you have to have your marijuana tested if you're selling it. Make sure there's not poisons, make sure that the amount of THC that you're advertising is actually the amount that's in the drug.
So, and also some of it might be laced with other drugs, cocaine or heroin or something like that, so they have to make sure. So does that mean that if I have my 6 plants in my house, I can sell it, or, you know?
No, the law's very specific. You cannot sell it.
Okay.
You can give it away, but you can't sell it. And that's something that's coming to actually our Board of Supervisors this Tuesday. We're having a hearing on deciding how we want to implement the state law. We can be more restrictive than the state law. Cities and counties can actually ban the cultivation of it and the retail sale, but we can't prohibit people from smoking it, transporting it on the roads, or growing 6 plants indoors, for example. So there are some restrictions, but I think from a perspective of Ventura County, I think having cultivation of it, while the farmers could make a tremendous amount of money, more than berries for sure, it does really open the door to a lot of things that I don't think are the values of our communities want to have. So my preference is I'd rather see veggies and fruits being grown in our fields and not marijuana.
How will it be packaged? How will it be taxed? These are all things.
Yeah, actually there are requirements in the law that they have to be, when it's sold, in sealed packages. It also has a excise tax that the state receives, a 15% excise tax on the sale when you have retail sales. And that's going to be an interesting aspect because some of the communities will receive part of that tax if they allow for sales and cultivation. But if you don't allow for sales and cultivation, you don't get a part of that tax. And I hope that's not an incentive to cities and counties to allow for retail sales and cultivation just because they want the money. Mm-hmm. But that money could be used for enforcement. So that is kind of something that our Board of Supervisors will have to weigh. It's always good to have money for enforcement, but I think you're opening the door big time once you start allowing cultivation and retail sales.
And sort of like a vice tax they have with cigarettes, and, you know, will that be considered one of the evils of society? Did you ever think a day would come, and you've spent your whole life in California, where you'd see this?
And in addition to that excise tax, there's also a cultivation tax. And that cultivation tax is something, I believe, $9.25 per ounce if it's a flower. It's like $2.75 an ounce if it's not the flower. So I mean, it's a very specific law, but there's definitely taxes involved and the potential for some funding too.
It'll be interesting, you know, like in Colorado, did more traffic accidents occur because of marijuana use, you know?
Yeah, getting those statistics. Yeah. It is kind of a new field that we haven't really broached yet, and I'm sure while our county may be more conservative, which I'm hoping it will be, we're definitely going to be seeing it throughout California, where it is going to be out there. And I would hope that we have the tools available, for example, to identify driving under the influence.
Is there a certain amount you could have on you that is legal?
Yeah, it is up to an ounce, but for example, in a car, it has to be sealed, similar to alcohol. You can't be under the influence, and you can't have an open container, is an example, a very similar law.
And you can't operate heavy machinery.
Yeah, one would hope not, one would hope not.
Yeah, well, so this is something that, did you ever think you would see?
I think from the city, county's perspective, we all thought that the law was going to pass. If not California, where, right? It's a pretty liberal state.
Right.
And on the positive side, I guess, is that you do have some control over what's being ingested because it has to be tested if you're selling it. So I guess there's that positive aspect. Another is it can eliminate the black market selling of it. There are also requirements that you have to have, for example, security at the retail stores. And it can't be in public places. It can't be within 300 feet of a school, for example,
like
if you're selling it.
Yeah.
And if you're growing it at home, it can't be visible to the public. But it is something that we're somewhat familiar with because there is already the allowance for medical marijuana.
The medicinal, yeah.
And our Board of Supervisors has taken a position that we support it for people who need it for medical reasons. And it does help people, for example, with chemotherapy that are very nauseous. Some people have found it to really reduce some of their pain too. So I don't think it's for us to judge that, but they do have to have a proven medical reason. And that's something we want to make sure we don't prevent people who need it from getting it.
Of course, the old Woodstock days, they say studies have shown that marijuana today is really more powerful than it was back then.
That is something very much on the minds of our law enforcement, of our district attorney, and that goes with the kind of opening the door to allowing for it in our county. People may use it more, as you were suggesting, and more people may use it, and having it be a higher concentration of THC can make people very sick, potentially too, and not in control of their behavior.
So that was one of the interesting things of the election. Anything else? We have about a minute left that surprised you in the election?
In the election?
Am I putting you on the spot?
Here we have in Ventura County, I helped run the campaign for SOAR, Save Open Space and Agricultural Resources. Delighted to see it passed in every city. We did 8 initiatives, 8 measures, as well as a county-wide one. And in some places, it was approved by as much as 76% of the vote. What failed was the transportation measure. Even though that got over a majority of vote, it needs a 2/3 vote, which makes it very difficult. So I know there's a lot of people upset that their transportation measure didn't pass, which would have brought more funds for our roads. So it was a lot of things happened in this election, including a new president that's going to totally change a lot of things, that particularly for the county and how we deliver services. So a lot to be
Interesting how
seen.
SOAR could be tied in with the new medical marijuana, the marijuana law. Ventura County Supervisor Linda Parks, thank you for joining us here on Local Edition, and we thank you as well. See you next time right here.